All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining our Addressing Challenges webinar. I am Etty Berland. I'll be the moderator of today's conversation. So we're so excited to have you join us. For this event, we're really going to be focusing on the panelists' experience, so we have disabled the chat. Please use the Q&A if you have any questions, and we'll try to include them in our conversation. You can also share your questions or any tech difficulties you may be having directly with us, with the hosts and panelists. All right, let's just jump right in. We're going to get right into it by grounding our conversation in a short history of comics challenges from Amy Wright, who is the chair of the ALA Graphic Novels and Comics Roundtable's Addressing Comic Bans and Challenges Committee.
Hi, everyone. And sorry, if I can just ask that we'll bring up the committee's website just as we quickly talk. So I'm Amy Wright. I am the chair of GNCRT's Addressing Comics Challenges Committee. We are a new committee as part of the GNCRT Roundtable. So we were convened in February 2022, owing, of course, to the rapid increase in comics challenges that we've all experienced over the past little bit, not just comics challenges, but disproportionately. Comics, of course, are being targeted in ways that they have not been targeted since the 1950s. For those of you who aren't aware, the 1950s is a period that I'm currently studying for my PhD, but also something that I think is important to bring into current discussions, because the 1950s were when comics went to trial, not just in the US, but Canada, Australia, France, Belgium, and the United Kingdom. A lot of the criticisms we see around book bans and challenges today are criticisms that actually have been around, especially comics and other visual medium, for more than, at this point, 70 plus years. And a lot of the organizations and networks that are instigating a lot of these challenges have also been around that long. So this is a lot for any one person, any one library staff member to deal with. And so this is one of the best things about our organization. So established in 2018 at ALA Annual, 2019 was the first official year of the Graphic Novel and Comics Roundtable. And so we can better support each other in comics librarianship for the first time officially under the ALA umbrella. I should say, though, of course, we've been doing stuff for decades before that, but it's nice to have official status. One of the things that we hope to do with this committee is specifically work to give people tools to address the specificity of comics challenges. So what I mean by that is a lot of people are unaware of the historical or pedagogical bias towards comics and graphic novels. But what they might not realize is that impacts a lot of our day-to-day in the library. Some of the things that our committee has been working on is developing tools that are very practical for people in addressing challenges. So very specifically, does your collection development policy address comics? So before you get a challenge, do you already have a collection development policy that talks about different peer review process for comics? Is no flying, no tights, for example, built into your collection development policy? Do you have specific budget lines in your collection development budget for comics and graphic novels? Are they spread out in different age ranges in your library? Is more than one person responsible for comics? Unfortunately, what we find is, even though there's more of us who advocate for comics and graphic novels in our library, still there's only one or two of us usually per library. And so especially when challenges arise around comics and graphic novels, of course, some of the most notable, genderqueer, mouse, new kid, that usually falls disproportionately on one person's shoulders, but we can be prepared. So this is webinar number 2 in our series. If you missed our first webinar, we actually have the recording up on our website, and we will be dropping links into chat, and we also have a resource document afterwards. But this is all to say we have a lot of people supporting you all. So if you're experiencing a challenge in real time, please firstly report the challenge to OIF, to Freedom to Read, or any number of other places, including the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund. But also know that there's resources and tools. So we have the website of the Addressing Challenges Committee up. But before we talk any more about this, I want to hear from our panelists, all of whom have frontline experience dealing with challenges, and will tell you that as stressful and as all of the above as it is, there are ways to target comics challenges, and especially take the specificity of these challenges and actually work to combat it, because we all love comics and graphic novels. That's why we're here, and we have some tools to help you all. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Amy. And we'll get all of those resources into the chat as well as added to our resources. I wanted to begin by just acknowledging that talking about experiences during challenges can be really difficult and traumatizing or re-traumatizing. So please take care of yourselves. This webinar will be recorded, so if you need to step away, I also recognize that it's difficult for us to talk about this, and I really appreciate all of you panelists being here and engaging this conversation. And I know that many of you have been raising the alarm for years, and so I hope that this panel can help us all collectively take action today. So just starting with our whole selves coming to this conversation. So first, let's do some introductions. I wondered if each of you would be willing to introduce yourselves. We can kind of go alphabetically by first name. Dawn, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, I'm Dawn Zimmer. I'm the Adult and Youth Services Director for a library system in Mississippi, the Madison County Library System. I am part of what Amy affectionately refers to as the NYPL diaspora. I did move here from New York City, working for the New York Public Library. I love what I do. I don't know what else you want me to say. I'm really excited to be here, even if it's a topic that's kind of icky.
I appreciate you being here and all the work that you do. Kelly, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. My name is Kelly Jensen. I am an editor at Book Riot and have been covering censorship there for about a decade now, especially the last 2 years. And prior to working at Book Riot, I worked as a public librarian from for children through adults for several years.
Thank you. I also feel like this is an opportunity to shout out all the amazing anthologies that Kelly has put together that every library should have in their collections. Um, Thank you. Ziba, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Ziba. I currently work at the Los Angeles Public Library. Right before that, I worked at the Long Beach Public Library. And in both systems, I helped start the first circulating zine collection in a public library in our system. Thank you.
Amazing, amazing. And we're going to talk a bit about parallels in zines and comics and different formats. Comics as a medium and a format is a big part of this conversation. Thank you all so much. So let's begin our conversation thinking about the big ideas around addressing challenges, and kind of a question for all of us. Based on your background and experiences, what are some of the things that you have done or you've seen or reported on to prepare for comics challenges that were the most useful when actually facing a challenge? So thinking about preparation being put into action. I know it's a really broad question, but I would love to get your insights and whoever would like to get us started.
I'll talk because I never am shy about talking. So one of the things we did when we saw this coming, and make no bones about it, we saw it coming, and a lot in part due to Kelly and some other people who really did a lot of the groundwork in making this known, especially for those of us who are on Twitter. It's a great place for conversations. It's also a great place for some pretty hateful people, but being able to connect with people and reading what's going on around the country and knowing we weren't alone. But a lot of what we did was re-examine our collection development policy and make sure that our collection development policy was sound, that we had a good collection development policy, that it covered that we purchase materials for everyone, and that that we have a very clear process, and not to subvert that process.
Yeah, and I'll echo, I think, a big part of it is being prepared and knowing what's going on across the country, not just in your community. You might not know what's going on in your community, but you might be seeing what's happening elsewhere, and you can prepare based on what you're seeing there. Just, knowing it could come there, knowing it likely may come there. And then additionally, there's a lot of value too in having a nice set of like talking points about why comics are important, why you have the comics in your collection, and who those comics serve. It serves your whole community. It's not one particular group. And then also just knowing the the accolades, the reviews, like all the professional resources that you can turn to say you've got a challenge of This One Summer is the first one I'm thinking of. You can name all of the awards that this book has won. You can name all of the institutions from which this award has won. You can talk about all the reviews that come from a wide range of sources. And having the ability to know where you can pull all that information from is going to be tremendously helpful in the moment.
And just make sure your policy is public on your website. So we have one, I put in the chat. I don't know if people can see it, but it's lapl.org/zine/policy. And if you don't have a policy, then you can also use zinelibraries.info section on running a zine library collection policy primer. So those are what I used at Long Beach, definitely where I started in 2015, the first circulating zine collection in Southern California. Thank you.
And if I can pop in, you reminded me of something else, Siba, which is to also have your challenge materials available and open. It seems counterintuitive, but the more transparent you are, the more you make these opportunities for people to feel like they have an input in the library, the better prepared you are, because you're protecting yourself by having such a policy, but you're also giving rights to the people in your community to share their opinions and share their insights as well.
That is excellent. Such good advice. I think there is an amazing resource I will add to the chat from Martha Hickson, who is a school librarian, where she put together kind of a guideline to how to get ready for challenges and prepare for it, which I highly recommended. Everything from Martha. She's definitely one of those librarian superheroes we should honor. I'm going to switch gears a little bit and kind of ask each of you individual questions. So turning to Kelly, you've been reporting about censorship for the last couple of years, and your breadth and depth of knowledge has, like Dawn said, has really supported all of us. And you specifically wrote, banning comic books is an American pastime. Comics have seen censorship since their beginning, and they remain among the most common targets of those who seek to remove books from school and library bookshelves. The most banned comics since 2000 tell a pretty compelling story of what book censors dislike. Queer stories, stories that tell dark truths in history, and any nudity that they can twist into claims of pornography or explicit content. Can you share more about your reporting about why comics are often targeted for censorship? I know you did a deep dive into the rating systems, like the Moms for Liberty's book look that evaluate comics. And we also know that, like, you talked about the professional reviews and things like that, and the ways that those are dismissed in some of these conversations. I know I asked a lot of questions all at once. So why comics in some ways, and kind of like your understanding of how comics are being willfully misunderstood.
Yeah, I think that the kind of big picture here to start with those questions is that comics are a visual medium. So for book censors, it's such an easy way to target material. They can point to a page, say this is, whatever they want to call it, and they have something they can show for that. And they can do that with print books, but with print books, they have to have a little bit more background information. With a visual medium like comics, they can just point to a page. And if you go to look at rated books or the Moms for Liberty book looks, what they do is they just pull out passages and they identify like why they dislike this particular passage, and they have very clearly what they're looking for. They define what explicit sexuality or gender ideology are. They define what they consider mild. They define what they consider nudity. And then they go through these books and they mark the pages that they're on, and then also include excerpts. So when you look at a print book and you look at this list of things that they find to be inappropriate, it tells a different story than when they can pull the comic book panels and put the panels in there and say, you know, this is nudity right here on the page. Look, you can see it, you can't deny it. And so they have a much easier story they can tell. They also are able then to use that when they show up to school board or library board meetings as sort of their proof. And then it also just, it makes for, you know, their 15 minutes of fame on social media, which is what they're going for here. And they can pass it around, and that is going to really hit people harder than a block of text. And I think that a lot of this goes back to just not having that sort of visual literacy more broadly. You know, comics are generally a newer format, and they were newer in library collections when I was in libraries. You know, they were expanding, but really the last 20, 30 years, we've really talked more about the importance of visual literacy. And so there's still this gap between people who are visually literate and people who can take their visual literacy and twist it in a way that can be used for, you know, whatever purposes they want to twist it for. We see this thing happen too, like if you think about political comics, right? A lot of people don't understand them, or they don't understand the humor, don't understand the subtlety, and so people can take advantage of that, and they do. And the same thing happens with comics. Being able to target comics for kids and teens is just, you know, icing on the cake for them, because then they can talk about protecting the children too, that the children are not ready for it, even though these comics are there to teach them visual literacy and how to be literate and engaged citizens in the world with a wide variety of people and stories and visual media. So, you know, they're able to like check so many boxes off their list of protecting the kids by going for comics.
Thank you so much, Kelly. It also, I think, then is an opportunity like to brush up on your knowledge of comics and what they are and how to advocate for them, which is generally stuff we should be doing as library workers and educators anyway, but that provides you with the tools where you can talk about the value of comics and how they work. It also reminds me of one of the things you said is sort of pulling things out, and where in your collection policy or in your reconsideration form, it should include, did you look at the work as a whole and have you considered it that way? And we're not cherry picking specific things from any kind of medium, but knowing that comics are more likely to be cherry picked in that way, and that they read the whole thing. This is very important too. So thinking about comics, I want to switch to talking about zines. And Ziba, you are an expert at zine collections, curation, and creation, and you wrote on your library blog, zines are a gateway into other people's lives and lived experiences. LGBTQIA zines encompass so many different identities and stories that it's hard to pinpoint one specific reason why they're important, but I think they're an excellent way for folks to have their voices heard, which is really powerful. Can you share your experience advocating for zine collections in your libraries and why it's so important to have access to this format for storytelling, which oftentimes, you know, has parallels in comics, often are comics, and why that really needs to be protected? And I think pointing to your policy and including zines in your policy is so brilliant. So I would love to learn more about that.
Thank you. Yeah, I love the zines because they're so DIY, do it yourself. It's a voice of the community in the community. So I know comics and graphic novels are more published, peer reviewed. So zines are very raw, and so it's up to the zine librarian to go page by page and then catalog it and have it available for the public. So I really liked it. At my former branch, a library patron, an adult library patron, walked by the zine collection and said, "Oh, what's this?" And I said, "Oh," I explained what zines were, and they were like, "I do poetry. I'm going to make a poetry zine, and you can put it in the library." And we did. So that was really empowering to have a local adult poet's voice in the library that can be cataloged and looked up. And so I think it's really great for all ages, all communities. Thank you.
And I think like that also speaks to responding to community need, which is another point of power and communication and transparency you can bring. Like, we're responding in the community wanting ways to express themselves, and this is one of the ways. I love that. Dawn, I know that as an adult and youth services director, you're responsible for approving youth material purchases. So kind of switching gears, I know that experiencing challenges can negatively impact future purchases, as the recent SLJ survey showed, and we'll put that in the chat. Can you talk about shadow bans and self-censorship and ways we can prevent them for ourselves?
Yeah, you can call it what you want: shadow banning, blackballing, self-censorship. It's when we as librarians allow our own bias, whether conscious or unconscious, and or the community attacks that we're under right now to impact how we collect for our systems. And I will tell you that as a queer librarian, it's hard for me to stop myself from doing that, from censoring myself and from looking at materials. And honestly, after 2 years of this, and we've been going through this here for 2 years, there are times, and I'm just dead honest, where I look at material and go, is this going to be worth the fight? And then luckily, my second thought is someone going to finally be able to see themselves represented in a book, a graphic novel, a comic, in a way that I never did? And the answer is usually yes. And the answer is usually I submit that order. And I make sure that everything we order, I can stand behind with my collection development policy. We have a very, very strong collection development policy, and everybody should. If you don't, you need to actively lobby for that, because without that, you do not have a leg to stand on. Our collection development policy is on our website, along with all of the forms that you need and information that you need should you wish to challenge. The problem is, and I think I'll talk about this later too, but the problem is that a lot of times the process is being circumvented, and it's being allowed to be circumvented. Not here. Here, you have to read the form, fill it out completely, check the box that says, I read the material, the entire material, and sign it with your contact information. Then we have a committee that reviews that material. We all sit down and read the book. We evaluate it. We pull professional pull professional reviews. We look at awards that it's won. We look at what's being said about it in the greater world. And I mean, I can tell you what's going to get challenged, because I watch what people like Kelly report is being challenged around the country. And so I see it coming. So I prepare myself, meaning I have files on my computer, well, not really right now, but shoved in a drawer of professionally reviewed materials that I'm like, they're going to come for this. I might as well get prepared now. And I hate that. But really what's important is, and my husband and I are actually about to go do, we're speaking at Children's Book Festival and doing a workshop called Check Your Bias at the Door. And it's about inherent bias in collection development and how we can actively work to challenge our own biases and acknowledge them and move past them and learn and collect for everybody. Because I hear a lot, you know, I'm in the Deep South, and I hear a lot of, we don't have those people in our community. I'm not sure who those people, I'm very sure who those people are. But yeah, you do. I don't care where you are, we're everywhere. People of color are everywhere. Queer people are everywhere. People of any marginalized community are everywhere. And so they deserve a chance to be seen in your collection. They deserve a chance to be seen in my collection. And not only that, I have branches that are, so Mississippi is a majority minority state. Yay. it makes me really happy. And I have some branches that are majority minority locations, and I have some branches that are not. And in those branches, to me, it's even more important that we include marginalized communities, because those kids and adults, they're going to go out into the rest of the world and they're going to discover that not everybody looks like them or loves like them or acts like them or talks like them. And we do a disservice to those kids if we don't show them people who look different from them, whatever that difference is. We owe it to those kids, and we owe it to the kids in the communities where these people do look like them, to finally see themselves in the pages of a book. And even better if it's a graphic novel, because that is a visual representation that they don't get to see a lot of times, because publishers are afraid to put people of color on a cover, apparently. So awesome.
And I think what you're referencing, Dawn, I mean, the classic metaphor by Dr. Redeem Sims Bishop talking about windows, mirrors, and sliding glass doors. And then just the part that we often don't talk about is the distortions that happen when people are only given representations. And like the importance of everybody having all the things. So I really appreciate that call to action. I know one of the things we really wanted to talk about is legislation, just to be aware of it, that, I mean, you've talked about it a bit, and really just paying attention to what is happening in our local communities is really, really important, as well as in our states and our cities. And it's all connected to this national movement. And I wonder, Dawn, how would you recommend people follow legislation, what should they look out for? And then what are some ways they can use their voices? And we can talk about this all together as well.
So I have an unofficial PhD in Mississippi legislation now. That's apparently a thing. I just invented it. I follow a lot of it. So our House of Representatives actually has a very active Twitter account where they post what's going on. Thank goodness. They also live stream their sessions, and they live stream some of the committee meetings, if not all of them. And so I recommend that people actually follow that. But you know, you said something very important. They need to pay attention to their local elections. They need to pay attention. If your school board is elected, you need to watch who's running for your school board. And you need to watch the appointed ones, because this is happening on, okay. So anyone who thinks that Moms for Liberty or any organization like that is a grassroots organization is wrong. They promote themselves as that. They are funded. They are incredibly well funded by dark money. They have major political ties. And they are not a grassroots organization. They will come into your town, your city, your county, your state, and they will work actively and well-fundedly, not a word, I don't think, but it is now, to put people in these positions. We've seen it happen. I watched it happen in my old home state of South Carolina, where they completely took over a school board and within like 30 minutes had fired the superintendent. Sorry, but that's crazy. That's like mind-blowing to me. So for me, I just like, when we saw this happening and it started happening to us, you know, we made national news. Yay. I'd really rather make national news for other things other than we had somebody say that they would not fund us as long as we had those homosexual materials in the library. But for us, like, we just had to start paying attention. And that started locally and it moved to the state level. And we watched, there are several Twitter accounts that I follow. And again, I realize I'm fangirling, and sorry, not sorry, but Kelly has been a big part of that because she's done such thorough reporting on what's happening and has managed to condense it into bite-sized chunks for people like me who have a squirrel brain. And I just need to see the headline so that I can realize the patterns. I can go in and look at the things I want to look at. I don't have to read like long articles that I don't have time or brain space for. And I need to know what's going on, what's going on, because as other states go, I guarantee you, so goes Mississippi. I mean, we're brought to you by the state that took away your choice of what you do with your own body if you're a woman. So we're right in there. Yay us. We're not last, but we're trying. And it's really difficult and it's really sad. And it makes me fight that much harder because we have to pay attention. You have to go to local school board meetings. Those people desperately need your help. You have to show up at your city council or whatever it's called. It's called something different everywhere and it's still not called city council here. And I still have no idea what it's actually called. Board of Aldermen or something, I don't know. Go to those local meetings. That's where stuff happens. But please, for the love of all things holy, show up at the voting booth and vote and know who you're voting for, please, because that matters. It's not just happening in the deep South. It's not just red states, y'all. It's really not. It's happening in blue states across the country and it's not going away. And so I need people to stop thinking that, oh, that won't happen here. That'll never happen here. Yeah, it will. And I also need for people to stop telling us that are in the middle of this that it won't get any worse. It'll be fine. Guess what? We're on fire. We are literally on fire. I'm doing the best I can to put out fires. I work for an amazing system with a phenomenal administration and an absolutely tremendous board of trustees. Your board of trustees matters too. If you're in a public library and you have a board of trustees, especially if they're appointed by local governing funding authorities, you need to know who those people are. And you need to make sure that they follow the rules. We're very lucky. We're very, very lucky. Our board of trustees is outstanding. So get involved. Just please, please, please take your head out of the sand. Please, because it matters. And it may not be on fire at your place yet, but it's coming. And we've been saying this for 2 years and people didn't listen. And we kept saying, my director kept saying at state meetings, it's coming. They're coming for us. Guess what? We were right. I really don't like being right about stuff like that, but we were. They're coming. And I'm not being an alarmist and I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm being dead honest. Prepare yourself because it's coming. And they don't like, the greater they, the well-funded by dark money, they don't like to follow the rules and they don't like to have to fill out forms. So you get a policy and stick to it. And the first person that supersedes that policy, you need to go have a word with them because that's not okay. And it just makes it harder for everyone else in that system to follow that policy. It's just like when we let a patron do something, well, yeah, but they let me do that in the other branch. You just made life harder for all of us by allowing something that violates our policy. Same thing goes with challenges. Make them follow the policy.
I want to echo everything that Dawn said, and then I want to offer what maybe is a little bit of hope, and that is that Moms for Liberty only requires that a chapter have 10 people to be started. So they boast a huge number of members, and certainly they are the biggest group. They are not the only group. They are not the only big group. But it is worth thinking about that when they come, and they will come to your county. Most of these groups probably have 10 or 15 people. Yes, they're well funded. Yes, they're well connected, but that's not a lot of people. And so think about that when you are showing up to your board meetings, when you are showing up to the poll, and bring people with you. Make it an event. Get people to show up and speak back, and it's very clear that they are the minority voice in your community, because they are. And once they give up on the school board stuff, they're going for the teachers unions. That's their current fight right now, is to get rid of the teacher unions. So whatever you're doing, they're going to eventually get bored of it. Right now, when you're in the thick of it, it's hard to see that. It's hard to see where the light is, but it is one of those moments where you pause and you think, they only need 10 people to get a chapter started. You can pull 10 people into a board meeting. You can get 10 patrons who are passionate about the library. You know them, you work with them, you see them, they come to the desk, they say hi. Tell them to write a letter to the board or show up to the board meeting and, just talk about how great the library is. And that's going to make a huge impact, and that can't be stated loudly enough.
It's really powerful to hear, and I want to just like repeat that. Like, the loudest voices are not all of us, and like, it's scary having been in the rooms where the majority of the people in the room were on the side of censorship, and how traumatizing that could be. But like, it just happens to be that they were the ones in the room. There's a lot of other folks who need to get in the room together, whatever that might be and whatever role they can play. I want to switch gears because like, the conversations we have with patrons can help transform the way that these things can go. And I want to talk about, so with Ziba, like, comic zines are also vulnerable to being targeted for comics. Many zines are comics. Can you share your experience handling a patron complaint to a zine in your library's collection and how you prevented it from escalating to a challenge? Because I know people are like looking for on the ground practical things you can do. How can you de-escalate? How can you follow your policy? All that stuff. I'll let you tell the story.
Oh, thank you. Yes, this did happen only once, and it was at my last system, not my current system, where I wasn't even with the patron, but a clerk at the circulation desk said, "Oh, a patron came and pulled the zine and said they didn't like the cover, and it's on the way to the teen section and they don't want their teens seeing it. They said it's an inappropriate cover image. Even it was in the adult section at the time." And I let the clerk know, well, I'm going to put it back, and just the next time, if you see the patron, let them know we have items in the library for everyone, for all ages, even adult DVDs that you can watch for that are maybe rated R can contain the similar images. They're just not on print in front of you. So I'm going to put it back. And that's just, and the clerk didn't even kind of sided with the patron. They said, I'm concerned too. So I was also educating the staff. Thank you.
And that's a really important thing also, just preparing staff, having these conversations, educating each other about comics and zines and their value is so powerful. There was a question about partnerships, and I want to talk about that. Back to what Don and Kelly were saying about bringing your community together. Community involvement and solidarity can help prevent book challenges. We need to come together, and our toolkit talks about this. There is an amazing advocacy alliance brainstorming tool that was created by Martha Hickson, which basically asks you to kind of consider groups that might be affected by a removal or restriction of books. Which allies can you connect with together? Again, you can do this at any point in the process, hopefully before, but also during, and kind of draw together. I want to shout out my local group, Niles Coalition, who really brought together to speak for the freedom to read at that at a local library board meeting, and have been actively working to save Niles Library. There are lots of groups that you can work with, so I would love to hear from each of you groups that you would want to recommend for people to partner with in their communities.
I'm going to start with the nationwide group, but reach out to every library. They've really been on the ground and providing tools and resources. And maybe for, I think, a lot of folks, the most important thing is just to be heard, to be able to tell what's going on, to tell the story, and know that you're here. Somebody who cares is listening, and somebody who wants to help you. And they have been tremendous for really connecting people with the tools that they need. And Eddie just dropped in the chat, they've put together this incredible platform called Fight for the First, where groups can organize, and they have access to petitions. They have access to a suite of tools that will help them get work done on the ground with their community supporters.
I also partner with schools. I mean, we do that naturally anyway, but if for no other reason than solidarity, but you get to reach a lot of people, and we do a lot of education around why graphic novels and comics are important and why they help kids who may have a print disability, especially, actually gain more literacy. But in this case, really making sure that we have a good community. Our friends organizations, our friends groups for our different library branches have been a great deal of support. They know how to rally the troops if needed. They would be, but I have to echo Kelly. I cannot say enough about John Kreska and every library and how much help they've been to us, our library system, and to countless other libraries across the country. They've been wonderful at just providing information and resources and ideas and to be a sounding board. Because it gets hard sometimes. I'm tired of being called a Marxist and a groomer and all kinds of other fun words.
And for zine librarians, there's power in numbers. So I would find your local zine fest. And like when I was in Long Beach, I was active with Long Beach Zine Fest, and now I'm active with Los Angeles Zine Fest. And even in Orange County, they have OC Zine Fest, and it's hosted in the Anaheim Public Library now every year. So definitely wherever you are, look for your local Zine Fest. And then even go to the Zine Librarians Unconference. Every year they have it somewhere else in the nation. This year it's in San Francisco, coming up August 4th and 5th. And you can find more info on zinelibraries.info, and it's a free conference for zine librarians or zine library workers to get together and talk about these issues. And so it's a great unconference. And then Zine Pavilion happens every year also at the American Library Association exhibit hall, and I help volunteer with that. And you can find all kinds of great zine programming there every year. So this year in Chicago, look for Zine Pavilion and get involved. They're looking for volunteers. So power in numbers, just find your like-minded support groups. Thank you.
And if I could add one more thing, it doesn't hurt if you are comfortable to reach out to local journalists you might know, or independent journalists especially. So the folks who aren't necessarily connected to a big mainstream media outlet can often do the kinds of work that these big papers can't do. I'm thinking of somebody like Judd Leglam has done some great work on what's happening in Florida with censorship and book bans. And those kinds of stories, when they can be taken on by somebody who is passionate about them, can not only help you feel supported, but helps you find your supporters who maybe don't go to the library all the time, whose faces you don't know, but who are passionate about public services and want to make sure that you feel supported and heard, and they will show up for you. It's amazing when I've written stories and I hear the sorts of turnouts that have happened. I don't think about it that way. I think about telling the story of the person who's giving me the story, but every time there's just tremendous support that comes out, and that's important. That's powerful.
I want to echo what Kelly said. I'm so glad you said that, because I didn't think about it, and I hate to leave out people, but we are eternally grateful to Nick Juden and Ashton Pittman from the Mississippi Free Press. Nick Juden broke the story about us, and you're absolutely right, because they're not tied to a major manufacturer or newspaper, if you will. They're independent, and they don't have the same concerns. They also get attacked regularly for the work they do. But it was people like them who really gave a lot of voice when we couldn't. For whatever reason, we can't always say everything we want to say. I have to remind myself of that regularly, but to not say the quiet stuff out loud sometimes. But we are really eternally grateful to those free press, to those independent journalists.
couldn't agree more with everything y'all are saying. And so it's like from the individual conversations you have with your patrons and your staff to the larger picture of reaching out to your local news, things like that. And it can be really terrifying, especially like you said, you know, if you're worried about your job or things like that. But you can also reach out to people who, like you said, are like people who can risk less in different situations, or you can take a risk when you have privilege to do so. And that's really, really important. I also think one of the questions that comes up is sort of like the on the ground de-escalation resources that you can do to get before it even gets to an official challenge. So you're on the desk and you get a question and you're like, I don't know what to do. Plan ahead, work with your staff, do scenarios, practice the language of libraries are for everybody. Get comfortable with just like the broken record thing, which works for also don't run in the library, but it also works for conversations, but also like recognize your own needs and your own boundaries and what you need to do. I know that's really hard when you don't necessarily have supportive administration who are supporting these kinds of conversations. You don't need to be a manager to support each other. And I think that's something I learned deeply, and that you can do this work, pull the threads, it's connected to everything else. So boxing. But I want to make sure we get to a lot of your questions. There's a lot of questions that are in the Q&A that we have been addressing, but I want to make sure that we answer some more of those. I think like there's a lot of really powerful questions that people are sharing. I want to answer the first one, was talking about visual literacy. A bunch of resources were shared there. Brushing up on visual literacy is a really great proactive strategy. There is an amazing book that is called Teaching with Graphic Novels, with Comics and Graphic Novels by Tim Smythe that I recommend. While it's more school focused, it's a great resource to, again, prepare for these kinds of conversations and talk about comics and graphic novels as visual literacy, which is an essential skill our kids and families and everybody needs. So we're fulfilling our responsibility as library workers by ensuring that they have those tools. Are running out of time, so I want to make sure. But I want to pull back a little. So question we had in the chat was sort of like, how do you respond in the moment? You're sitting at the reference desk and somebody brings a book to you and says, this is not appropriate. What are some strategies that all of you would kind of recommend in that like, this is the during moment, this is happening, you're at desk, or anywhere. It could be walking down the hallway and you have a conversation opportunity. What are some recommendations y'all have?
So my first recommendation, I'm going to say that, and then I'm going to share this other thing that I like want to make sure I get out. Don't respond in the moment. If you can take the opportunity, like when you are approaching those moments, you are in fight or flight. So you are not thinking with your thinking brain, you're thinking with your protective brain. So if you can take a minute and go for a walk, if you could take a minute to go to your office, if you can tell that patron, hey, can I give you a phone call tomorrow and we'll talk about it? That's going to serve you so much better than trying to respond in the moment when you are just, you can't think clearly. And I think that's where Dawn had talked about quiet and silent censorship. That's at play there too, because your brain is in that like protect yourself mode, and so you're not able to sit and have this like rational train of thought. What are the points I want to hit? How do I then be a receptive listener to what they're saying too, rather than just pushing back at them? And so take that opportunity to breathe, whatever that looks like for you in the moment. And then I wanted to add this little piece, and it ties into what you were talking about, Eddie, that something I think that more librarians need to push for across their organization are parachute policies that protect people who are in the midst of a challenge. So at Bookright, we have a parachute policy where if something is going on that is impacting you personally, because you might be a member of a marginalized group who has just been the target of a hate crime, right? That's a good example. You could tell your manager, look, I got to pull the parachute, and it means you're stepping away for the day. It means you are getting off the desk, that somebody's going to step in and take care of something for you. And nobody takes advantage of it because it's there as a safety measure. And so pushing for those sorts of policies, I think, would be really helpful in libraries, particularly now, because the people who are in the position of dealing with book bans are also likely people who are marginalized. And so the attacks on the books are attacks on the people. And so your people are hurting, and your people really need that space to take care of themselves in some way. And so when they're given that opportunity, when it's in the policy that they can protect themselves, they're then also better able to be advocates and better able to respond to challenges as they come up in the moment.
I agree. We actually have printed and laminated talking points at every circ desk about these things, about the challenges. If somebody comes in, here's what you do. And in our case, we have said to the circulation staff, you go get the manager. That's more on their pay grade, you know? And that also, what it does is it, A, takes them away from having to deal with that. And B, there's a break there. There's that moment of space where the patron who may be all riled up has an opportunity, and we hope they take it, to collect themselves and maybe de-escalate themselves. And then if not, we have branch managers who are, we do some professional development on de-escalating. And I mean, let's all face it, patron complaints come in a variety of ways, from the bathrooms to the books on the shelves to whatever. They forgot their password and they're upset that you don't know it, for, you know, their email password. So getting that break where the circulation staff member gets to step away from the desk for a minute, go to get the branch manager, or give out a branch manager's card. And again, say, hey, I'm going to give you this card. This is who you need to contact. We've also given out our cards. You can give out my name and number, or my name and email address, and I will answer your questions. Our director will answer your questions, whatever it takes. But I am so very fortunate that we have an administration and an executive director who recognizes that the staff matters, and how they're feeling. And the staff at the particular branch that was hit really hard, she checks in with them regularly, not just with the manager. She goes down to the branch. She'll take them cookies or whatever. She checks in on them because the news articles still come out. They still get called political activists, agenda pushing, whatever. And so, because there are people in that branch who are parts of marginalized communities, because thank you for acknowledging that, we want to make sure that they're taken care of. But providing our frontline staff with talking points and a plan has been at least somewhat freeing for them. They don't have to think. It's literally laminated and taped, not public facing, obviously, but where they can see it and they can refer to it. And it's a security blanket, if nothing else. But hopefully it gives them the points that they need. It's the elevator pitch. You know, it's bullet points, and it's a go get the manager. And the manager has talking points and they know them. And, you know, so we have a progression available. If people use it, great. And if they don't, then maybe they feel like they can handle it, and that's great too. But our staff sticks to the policy, and they learn how to de-escalate. But they're used to it, again, because they're not always getting hit with, I hate this book. They're getting hit with, why don't you know my email password? So they de-escalate daily. And they just use those same tactics and skills to de-escalate these kinds of conversations.
That is fantastic. And I also think that's a really great reminder. Like, we have a lot of these skills already as library workers or educators that we can use in these contexts. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add, Ziba. I wanted to make sure you had the opportunity in terms of, you know, kind of on the spot responding or things like that, or de-escalation.
Oh, just similar to what I mentioned earlier, that the library has materials for all ages and all types. Thank you.
Absolutely. Like go back to our core. Like this is who we are as libraries. I think that's really, really important. Um, I would you mind also there was a question about the zine conference that you mentioned that people who are interested in probably want to go to. So if you won't mind sharing that in the chat. I want to kind of ask a really broad and maybe a challenging question in the time we have, but thinking about advice for school librarians who have district administrators who cower to loud voices, the push, the shock of pornography of being distributed in schools, the fear of these groups perpetuate kind of the power to divide administration, to not support librarians, and collection development policies already in place. That's a really big question. I would say my first thing is also, as a school librarian, your local school library association is a really important resource to support you. I know that I've seen a bunch of them providing statements and support intellectual freedom committees. So use your network of school librarians. We know that you all are dealing with a lot of really hard things and are so valuable and important and essential. So that's my first thought, but I wonder about y'all, especially again, like when the call is coming from inside the house is really the challenge there too. So what are some thoughts y'all have about that?
I would suggest looking to find some of the school librarians who've been in that position and ask them how they've handled it, what's worked, what's not worked. For example, Gavin Downing, he's outside Seattle, is a great example. He dealt with an administrator who was pulling stuff off the shelves and would not listen to him for reasons why the books were on the shelves. It made it to the district level. It was a whole scenario. But Gavin, I mean, documented everything and is very open about the experience, what he did that worked, what didn't work, allies he drew in to make these, to support the kids who deserve these books. And so he's one example of, unfortunately, dozens, hundreds of folks who've dealt with this and dealt with it successfully. And so a lot of them are very eager to share their stories because they want to help make sure that you don't feel like you're not supported, that things are, there's hope out there. There are strategies that work, and you learn the best from your colleagues who figured out how to play the systems too.
Does anybody else want to add anything? That was 100%. I think like there's the stuff is out there, like Kelly has said, constantly. And there's a lot of really great trainings in addition to this one you're in that you can participate in. And I will collect some of the things that have been shared, Gavin's story in particular, and add that to the resources after this webinar. We are kind of running out of time. So I want to be mindful of everybody's time. Is there any final things y'all would like to share as we wrap up?
I was just going to pop in and share one more thing because I put this in the notes and I wanted to make sure I hit on it. When we talk about the sorts of resources that you want to cite and have available for when a challenge arises, also be aware that there are groups that dislike the resources that you use and are going to actually push back against that. So, quick example, Volusia County Schools in Florida have been trying to distinguish between peer reviews, so what you would find in Booklist, what you would find in Kirkus, School Library Journal, your typical review sources, and what they call peer reviews. Community reviews, I think is the word that they're using. These are the Moms for Liberty databases. These are like your average reader with no background in child development, in literacy, in the sorts of skills that you as librarians are actually trained in and knowledgeable in. And so just being mindful of having those professional resources, but also resources that fall outside that scope. Good Amazon reviews. Like, I don't like saying that, but good Amazon reviews are going to help you. Those are your community reviews. So just beware, you might have pushback for using only peer-reviewed sources.
That's great advice. Use all the tools that we can to fight for the freedom to read. Dawn, you wanted to add?
Just that I actually asked somebody that if they passed some legislation in Mississippi, which has not yet passed, where I should send the student loan bills for my master's degree, because clearly my master's degree is not as important as their being a mom, money, whatever that is. And it's important that we do recognize that, but also that we also acknowledge that Amazon and Goodreads are not professional reviews. And a lot of really great books get review bombed. And that's where people from these communities will go on and negatively review something in order to bring its rating down. And that's a thing that happens. And there was one other thing, and it's completely left my squirrel brain. So.
I want to share a comment. I don't know if you also saw, but I want to make sure I share it, which is, oh, of course, now I can't find it. Oh, I just want to thank all of you for your good and valiant work. I'm so great. This is from Chloe Ramos. I'm so grateful for all the information that you are sharing. Even though these things are frightening, your conversation has been so enlightening and inspiring. Very grateful, friends. So I think it's really important to acknowledge all of y'all. This is really, really hard work and really hard to take in oftentimes. But I'm also so heartened to be in this work with all of you, and with all of you people who are joining us or who will watch this archive. Please reach out to us if we can support you in any way. This is not the end of our panels. We have another panel, our third one, the after panel, which will take place in May, on May 17th. We will also share all the recordings and resources in the near future. I want to be respectful and mindful of y'all's time. And any final things you'd like to share before we close for the day?
I would like to thank everybody who actually came and whoever is going to listen to this afterwards, because these are tough conversations, but they're so necessary. These people are trying to destroy these people. I hate when I say that, sorry. The people that are trying to censor books are trying to destroy an entire large groups of people. They're trying to get rid of those groups of people. It's not about the books. Please don't be misled. It's not about the books. So thank you for coming, and thank you every frontline librarian in a public library, a school library, a special library, whatever you are, wherever you are. Thank you for doing the hard work, because dealing with the public ain't easy.
Echoing that, and also adding, if you're here, you're already doing, some of the work. So give yourself that credit for showing up and for listening and for sitting with this, even though it's not fun to talk about, it's not fun to think about. And, there's knowledge in knowing that it will be in your backyard, and you have access to all kinds of tools and resources to make it as, I don't want to say as positive as can be, because that's not fair, but to protect yourself as much as you can.
Thank you for putting this together, and I hope to run into you all at a Comic-Con or Zine Fest near you.
Yes. And I would say also, this is a resource. Like when I was working on trying to get our collection development policy updated, I shared tons of Kelly's resources. This webinar, you could share with your administration and be like, hey, maybe you should watch this. And this might help like us get together and do the things. Please call upon us at the Graphic Novels Comics Roundtable if we can support you in any way. Join our Discord if that's a resource that is helpful for you. We'll see you at the next one with the author of The Magic Fish. So stay tuned. And thank you all so much for being here. And we'll follow up some of the questions we didn't get to today in the resources that we share out. And thank you all so much. Thank you so much, Kelly, Dawn, and Ziba. I'm so honored that you said yes. And I look forward to seeing you all in the near future. Thank you, everybody.